where we are in our 100th year of service to this community. We'll start today by singing the national anthem led by Ellen and Audrey.
May we pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for this absolutely gorgeous day. I'm also grateful that I can be a member of this Rotary Club because it's people that are making a difference in the lives of others in Columbia, South Carolina. It's also a place where I've met a lot of lifelong friends. I'm also grateful to be living in South Carolina. You know, we don't talk too much about this, but South Carolina and this Rotary Club in tandem have proven over and over again through the years that we're here to totally help others, and we do value service above self. I'm also grateful for this country that we call the United States of America. And I'm grateful for the electoral process that we have, not thrilled with, but grateful for the electoral process we have that elects our leaders. We are so fortunate today to have one of the senior managers of our government and of our country right here in Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham, to me, one of the great things I've always said about him is that he's one of the very few people that tend to see over and over works both sides of the aisle. And until we can do that, we'll never have the success that we need. Pray that you'll also give not only Senator Lindsey, but our other representatives and senators as well, give them the wisdom, the power, the judgment to make the right decisions on what's best for this country, and encourage them to do likewise with those around them. Also grateful for this food. Pray that you will bless it to the nourish of our bodies, us to thy service. In Christ's holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bob. You may be seated. Call Beth Myrick forward. Beth is going to introduce and welcome everyone, and many visitors and guests.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to have you here. Welcome to Columbia Rotary Club. We've got a real full agenda today, so we're going to do things just a little differently. We're going to recognize people collectively instead of individually. So first of all, I would like all of the visiting Rotarians that are here today from other Rotary clubs, if you would please stand so that we can give you a round of applause. Glad you're here. That is here today that is an invited guest or either an uninvited guest, a Rotarian, would you please stand so we can welcome you? And do we have any of our elected officials here that we would like to have stand and be recognized? Representative Nathan Valentine, who's going to be inducted today. So thank you so much, and we look forward to a great day in Rotary. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Welcome, everyone. This week, Rusty DePass will do health and happiness. Each week at Columbia Rotary, we take a few minutes to recognize our members' accomplishments and any changes that they have, and so we call it health and happiness. And this week's report will be brought to us by past president Rusty DePass.
I didn't know I was going to have to walk so far. I want to begin by pointing out to you that Jim Falkenberry in Colonial Printing had 7 entries in the printing industry of the Carolinas Association contest or annual meeting. They entered 7 and won 5 categories. So congratulations to them. Today, I am told, is Ellen Hayden's birthday. Is she here? Not here. Celebrating, I guess. And Kathy Kennedy is the president of the Columbia Green and also has been elected to the Board of Governors of the South Carolina Bar Association. So congratulations to that. The survey that they've been pestering us with for weeks now, they're going to send it out one more time. So please, for goodness sake, fill out the survey so they'll quit bothering us about it. I want to be serious for just a minute and tell you that I have not always been Lindsey Graham's biggest booster. And he knows that. And that's okay. But I want to say that by his work as a candidate for president, and I didn't vote for him, but by his work as a candidate for president, I think he has done the entire country and perhaps the world a great service by emphasizing the defense of the United States of America and dragging the whole debate over his way. Last fall, actually, when Lindsey was first elected, he ran against Alex Sanders. I don't think he's had much competition since then, but he had some real competition in running against Alex Sanders. About 6 months after Lindsey had been elected, Alec was quoted as saying if he'd known Lindsey was going to turn out the way he did, he'd have voted for him himself. Well, last fall, Alex Sanders' brother-in-law, who was a real close friend of mine, died unexpectedly, and I took some food over to the house that I had actually fixed myself. And so Alec's sister happened to be talking to Alec on the telephone, and she said, "You'll never guess who brought breakfast over here for Robert and me this morning." He said, "Who?" And she said, "Rusty DePass." Alex Sanders' response was, "Well, I hope you had a food taster." The last weekend I have spent in Virginia at a 50th prep school reunion. And for those of you who have done that, you know what a sobering event that can be. So sobering, in fact, that you generally want to drown your sorrows in something else. But I want you to know that I'm not the fattest, the baldest, or the ugliest guy in my class. I might have been in the top 10, but I was not the worst. But just a couple of quick facts about 50 years ago that they worked up for us. A gallon of milk cost 99 cents. A new home cost $14,200. A new car cost $26.50. Life expectancy was 70.2 years. A gallon of gas was 32 cents. The minimum wage was $1.25 an hour. The tuition to go to Harvard was $1,760. A dozen eggs cost 60 cents, and a postage stamp was 5 cents. Ronald Reagan became governor of California, began his career in politics. Indira Gandhi was elected Prime Minister of India, and the Salvation Army was 100 years old, 50 years ago. The popular songs were Good Lovin', Petula Clark's My Love, When a man loves a woman, Percy Sledge. You Can't Hurry Love, The Supremes. The Sound of Silence, Simon and Garfunkel. You're My Soul Inspiration, The Righteous Brothers. And Monday, Monday, The Mamas and the Papas. And the other thing that they told us that was awfully sobering was that the basic charge to attend the school where I went in 50 years ago was $2,200. Today, it is $51,700. So, inflation has taken over, and we want you to do something about it. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rusty. Great job. I'll call forward Ryan Evans and Bob Diggle. They're two members of the golf tournament committee. They've been working very hard to put on a great event next Monday, April 25th. So I'm inviting them forward to give you guys the details.
Thanks, Mark. Hope you've noticed our beautiful banner up here today. A week from today, Monday, is going to be about 90 degrees and sunny. So we hope you join us for this wonderful golf tournament and fundraiser as we support the Education Foundation, which gives scholarships to rising seniors right here in Columbia. So it's a great cause. We'll also be donating money to the Rotary International Fund. And there are multiple ways in which you can participate. First, I'd like to thank our title sponsors, Wells Fargo and JT's Automotive Group. We couldn't do it without sponsorship. We also have other sponsorship levels available, whether it's just you want to sponsor a hole or you want to go all the way up to the platinum level. We welcome sponsorships. We have those opportunities available. But also, if you don't want to sponsor, you can play. You'll see on your table there should be a flyer about the golf tournament. You can fill that out, whether you want to put together a team or just want to be thrown in with another team. Make sure you get those back to me. My information's on there, and we'd be glad to sign you up to play. There's volunteer opportunities. If you don't play golf or you just want to come out and join us for a nice day, there's volunteer opportunities that we have. There will be door prizes. There will be a hole-in-one challenge sponsored by Honda Cars. And so the more folks we have, the greater the odds that somebody wins that fabulous prize. And you've all seen Tom and Bob outside hustling folks for those raffle tickets. And so I join you to ask you to join us and buying a raffle ticket for that cooler that's out there. And those proceeds also go to the Rotary Fund as well. Bob?
Thank you, Ryan. You can see who's doing most of the work. What I want to do first is I'm going to raffle this little Yeti personal cooler off, and it's going to be a trivia question about golf. And last year on the PGA Tour, Jordan Spieth led the tour with $53 million. He had $23 million on-course winnings. He had $30 million off course. Now there's two players in the top 10. I'm going to don't yell it out. I'm going to ask Mark to randomly pick somebody out when you raise your hand. There's two players in the top 10 who one is number 5 and one is number 6 who no longer play on the PGA Tour, but they still lead in off-course earnings. One is number 5 and one is number 6. And the person who's got the answer to that, I'll give them one cooler. So if you just raise your hand.
Ray Pump?
No.
Jack Nicholson.
There's two of them, 5 and 6. Both of them.
Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicholson.
Correct. Arnold Palmer had 50. Arnold Palmer is 86 years old and he had 43 million. And Nicholas is 76 and he was still at 23 million. So if somebody just, Andy, you want to come get this? Just a little quick agenda thing I want to give you next week. Starting at 10 o'clock, we're going to have the buffet started. Also at 10 o'clock, we're going to have the putting contest from 10 to 11:15. Then at 11:30, we'll start the golf tournament. And probably in about 5 hours' time, we'll have the evening buffet. And that'll start somewhere probably about 5 o'clock or 5:30. So we need you out there. We appreciate your support. And of course, if you see any sponsors, thank them, and we appreciate JT and of course Mark and his support for the church. So we look forward to seeing you. Hope you're there, and keep putting money in for the raffle for the cooler. Thank you very much.
Okay, a lot to look forward to. We also, there's a lot of people that have worked hard on the golf tournament, and the committee, Carl Byers, Tom Gammon, Jerry Smith, these two gentlemen, thank them as well, because it doesn't just happen. Let's give them a big round of applause. Okay, we have 3 new members we're going to induct today, and to handle that, we're going to call forward Michael Kahn.
Thank you, President Mark. Point of personal privilege is if anybody here is a notary public and can witness a signature for me after the meeting, I'd appreciate your doing that. And now, the business at hand. Will the following 3 please come to the table here with their sponsors? Glenn Matthews, sponsored by Al Stevenson. Wes Dasher, sponsored by Trevor Bowers. And Nathan Valentine, sponsored by Brad Wright and President Mark. I'll be telling the club a little bit about each member and then sharing some thoughts with each of the inductees and finally having the sponsors affix their Rotary pins on the members. So as they're coming forward, I'd ask each of you to consider who in your circle might be a community leader in need of your Rotary sponsorship. So, as I call your name, gentlemen, would you please take a step forward so that the club might come to recognize you a little better? Glenn Matthews. Has anyone in the room ever referred to a sibling as a pest? We need to be careful how we use that term around this inductee because he's all about eliminating that which bugs you. President of Modern Exterminating, Glenn Matthews, comes to us via sponsor, Al Stevenson. Glenn, who resides at 2404 Monroe Street, is married to Melanie and is a member of New Spring Church. He's a member of the Executives Association of Greater Columbia and 3 different pest control professional associations, including a national association. Holding a BA in economics from USC, Glenn still enjoys all things Carolina, including sporting events and the tailgating that comes with it. Give it up for Glenn. Next, please meet Wes Dasher, who is a commercial account exec at South Risk Management. Wes, I notice your background includes both legal studies and insurance underwriting, which looks like really an ideal sort of combination for your business, which is devoted to risk management. If you think Wes has this kind of special glow, a real patina about him, that's because he's a Clemson graduate, where he was president of his KA fraternity chapter, graduating in 2012 in business admin with a minor in legal studies. A native of Columbia and a Hammond grad, Wes is married to Lauren, and they're members of Shandon Baptist, pastored by our past president, Dick Lincoln. When he's not at church, you might find Wes on the golf course, or hunting, or fishing, or otherwise with his family, who reside at 6400 Sylvan Drive. Wes's sponsor, Trevor Bowers, is a relatively new member himself, which reinforces the notion that new members are such an excellent source of other new members because each one has a fresh new network and a set of friends that might benefit from Rotary. So thank you, Trevor, for bringing Wes to Columbia Rotary. And Wes, we give you a warm Columbia Rotary welcome. Finally now, meet Nathan Valentine, who is jointly sponsored by Brad Wright and Mark Sullivan. Co-sponsor Brad is also one of our new members himself. Nathan Valentine, as his Dutch fork surname suggests, lives in Chapin with Karen, 2 kids, and a pair of pooches. Also on the personal front, Nathan's family is active in Riverland Hills Baptist, and several sports. Youth sports, USC sports, and hunting appear on his bio, along with this curious interest, F3. Now Nathan, after an exhausting internet search here, I'm still unclear as to whether F3 means fireman 3rd class, or Form 3, which is this kind of academic science thing, or whether It's some combination of faith, family, fashion, football, fishing, or what is F3?
Fitness, fellowship, and faith. It's a man's workout group.
Fitness, fellowship, and faith. I think Troy Fight might be a member of that
He
group.
is. Thumbs up. That's his
Great.
name.
All right. So, you heard it here. Finally, while some of you may know Nathan from his past service in the Spring Valley and Lake Murray Irmo Rotary Clubs, or from his market lending at Movement Mortgage, others may know of his statesmanship, Nathan being an elected member of the South Carolina House since 2004. Very popular in South Carolina. He swears, Lindsey, that he is not after your seat in Washington. Please welcome Nathan as the group turns to face me. I want to welcome you to Rotary International and to the Columbia Rotary Club. You're joining a global force of 1.2 million Rotarians that are dedicated to projects as big and comprehensive as eliminating polio worldwide, to things as intimate as resolving and alleviating hunger right here in South Carolina and Midlands. Many of the Midlands key leaders are part of this club, and your particular leadership and your gifts for service have been recognized, and that's why you're here. I want to invite you to be active, to join a committee, and to share your ideas and your leadership with this club. On your road to this moment, you probably learned some key facts from your sponsors, from a past president, and soon to be a fireside chat. You've probably also received an invoice. Once that's been paid, once you attend your fireside chat, which is, I think, scheduled for the 16th of May in the evening, you'll be an official member of one of the greatest service clubs and organizations with which you'll ever be associated. Welcome to Rotary.
Welcome new members. We're thrilled to have you in the club. And thank you, Michael, for a fabulous induction. Judge Anderson will now introduce United States Senator Lindsey Graham.
We are honored to have as our speaker today the senior United States Senator for South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. Senator Graham is not just a member of what's been called the world's greatest liberty body. He's also an all-American success story. He grew up in a blue-collar family, that's his term, in the small town of Central. His parents ran a restaurant and a pool hall. After losing both parents at a young age, he and his sister persevered going on to college. He owned a law school. He then spent 6.5 years in the Air Force prosecuting and defending cases in Germany. He then returned to the upstate, opened his own law office, and was elected to the state legislature. He didn't stay that long before an opening developed in the 3rd Congressional District. He won that race handily and headed off to Washington, where he quickly developed a reputation as hardworking, plain-spoken congressman who quickly developed a penchant for hard work and outworking the opposition. As all of you well know, for the better part of the 20th century, South Carolina's 2 Senate seats were locked up with 2 icons, Strom Thurmond and Fritz Hollings. And when Senator Thurmond decided to retire in 2002, you would think there would be a lot of pent-up demand and dozens of candidates coming out of the woodwork. But when the filing period closed for the Republican primary that year, there was only one name on the register, Congressman Graham. And that, my friends, is a testament to the respect that the other candidates and would-be candidates and office holders held for the congressman. As you've already heard, he went on to defeat a well-respected South Carolinian, Alex Sanders, in the general election. He was re-elected in 2008 and then again in 2014. While in Congress, he continued his military connection, serving in the South Carolina Air National Guard and then the Air Force Reserve, from which he retired in 2015. In Washington, he has a well-earned reputation as a conservative, problem solver, and one of the strongest defenders of a robust military. One leading commentator recently wrote that when it comes to defending America, and this is a quote, Lindsey Graham has been right about more things on foreign policy for longer than just about anyone. If anyone has bragging rights on foreign policy, it is Graham. He's also a leader in cutting spending, reforming entitlements, and getting government out of the way so business can create jobs. One national conservative organization called him a taxpayer hero who puts the interests of the taxpayer ahead of politics by consistently voting to cut wasteful spending, reduce the tax burden, and make government more accountable to the taxpayers. As you probably know, Senator Graham is one of the most sought-after guests on the Sunday morning political talk shows. A lot of people might wonder why a quiet, unassuming senator from a small southern state would command so much attention. It goes back to what I said earlier. He does his homework, he studies the issues, he's plain spoken, and he's not afraid to tell people what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear. Regardless of which side of the political aisle you might be on, I think we can all agree that Senator Graham has been a tireless public servant and champion for South Carolina. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to President.
Screw that up, so thanks for having me. One reason I get on talk shows a lot on Sunday, I don't go to church as much as I should. And I can break anything down to 30-second soundbite. Strong. How many people remember Strong met Strong? Yeah, tough act to follow. I remember when I took over, he gave me some advice. Anybody want to be a federal judge? Go to the Bar Association and ask that question. Everybody's hands raised. Thank you, Judge. You're great. We got the strongest judiciary in South Carolina, one of the great institutions. We said when it came to picking judge, Strong said it's sort of like this. You're going to piss off 10 people and have one engrave. Because they serve for life. That was pretty good advice. The bottom line is, I want to thank you, Joe, for a lifetime of service on the bench. Our federal judiciary is strong. Fritz and Strom, when it came to judges, helped each other. I can't remember a really knockdown, drag-out fight when it came to judges in South Carolina. When the Democrats were in power, Strom would reach across and say, the other way, Fritz would reach across and Strom and say, I'm thinking about so-and-so, what do you think? And that stood the test of time for about 40 years. I've tried to do the same thing. That's the one job, don't you want somebody, a man or woman, who could care less about your background, your politics, judge you based on the facts? Now let me tell you what I worry about, and I'll talk about that in a minute. That we're making the judicial selection process politics in another form, and I really worry about where we're going with judges. I'm from Central. He told me, anybody know where Central's at? Yeah, good. Come spend money. So we not only own the restaurant and a pool room, but we own the liquor store. Got any Clemson fans? Thank you for the business. Saturday was good for the Graham household when the Tigers played at home. But I grew up in that small town, never dreamed I'd be standing here in front of the Rotary Club speaking as a United States Senator. But if you work hard and a lot of people help you, you can go a long ways. Rusty, thank you very much for those kind words about my presidential campaign. It didn't last long, but I had a good time. And all I can tell you is that I got in for a reason and I got out when I ran out of money. How many of you are ready to talk about 2017, not 2016? We're going to elect somebody president. We're down to 5. Bernie and Hillary, Kasich, Cruz, or Trump. Whether that's good or bad, they're the 5. One of those 5 is going to be president of the United States. I don't think at our convention, Rusty, we're going to jump over Cruz or Trump. Might jump over Trump, but we're not going to jump over the 3 who are left. If all things go the way they are today, Hillary's going to beat Bernie barely. So, what will the next president have to deal with in 2017? No matter who he or she may be, here's sort of my view of the job they're going to be inheriting. Our national security is in decline. Our military is headed toward being gutted. And the next president needs some partners in the Congress to turn around the budget cuts regarding our military before it's too late. By 2021, because of sequestration, we're going to have 278 ships in the Navy. which would be a level consistent with 1915 size Navy. So we're going to have 420,000 people in the Army, the smallest Army since 1940. 50% of the combat squadrons in the Air Force will not be combat capable because of the budget cuts, having to deal with robbing Peter to pay Paul. So the President of the United States will instantly become Commander-in-Chief, and I would argue that the next Commander-in-Chief needs to restore the capabilities we're losing to deal with a world that's very much in danger and, quite frankly, on fire. If they don't realize they have to rebuild the military, I think they're going to make a huge mistake. Now, what will they need? They will need Republicans and Democrats finding a way to take these budget cuts off the table and replace them with something that makes more sense. Sequestration was an effort by Congress to save $1.2 trillion over a decade. The sequestration clause said that if the committee in charge, the super committee, couldn't find $1.2 trillion in savings, it would have cut across the board the discretionary budget, 50% from defense, 50% from non-defense. Nobody thought the super committee would fail. It did, and we got a mess on our hands. ISIL. If things stay the same, we're going to have ISIL still in Raqqa, Syria. They'll be diminished, but they will not be destroyed. If things stay the same, Iraq is going to be fractured with ISIL enclaves. The likelihood of a Western capital or a Western population center being hit between now and early next year is great unless things change. I just came back from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Turkey, and Israel. So the Mideast is in a state of chaos that I haven't seen in my 20 years. The Saudis, the Turks, and the entire Sunni Arab world is very upset with us regarding this Iranian nuclear deal. So the next president is going to have to come up with something new to destroy ISIL. How many people want ISIL destroyed? Okay, that's the right goal. The strategy we have can diminish, but it will not destroy. The people we're training inside Syria are mostly Kurds. They're the YPG, they're the cousins of the PKK over in Turkey. It's creating a lot of conflict between us and Turkey because Turkey sees the PKK as a terrorist organization. The YPG is an offshoot in Syria. The reason I tell you this is I don't believe there's enough indigenous forces left in Syria to be trained by the Western world, including us, to destroy ISIL without some help from the outside. So that means the next president's got to do one of two things. Find a way to destroy them, either go it alone or have partners. How many people would like to have partners in the exercise of destroying ISIL? Me too. So here's the good news. You don't need 100,000 U.S. troops to get the job done. They hold territory about the size of Indiana. There are 40,000 of these guys that we know of, probably more. But they don't have an Air Force, they don't have a Navy, they're not 10 feet tall, but they're crazy as hell. And they're not going to surrender. So you got to get on the ground, you got to kill them. But then you got to hold the territory. They're intermingled among millions of people. So when I hear some of my Republican colleagues say, let's carpet bomb, I don't think that's actually going to work because you can't kill everybody in the name of trying to kill ISIL because we'll have a bigger problem on our hands. So what I would advise the next president to do is to form a regional alliance. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt have very large armies. Let them do the fighting this time with our help. Let the force that goes inside Syria come from the region. They will be more welcome, and it's about time they did this. Now, they can't do it by themselves. I just got back from the region, and Saudi Arabia's ability to deal with the Houthis in Yemen has shown many flaws in their military. They have a lot of hardware and shiny toys, but they really haven't fought effectively in a very long time. It is in your interest and my interest to destroy ISIL. It is in their interest to destroy ISIL. Let's let them do the fighting. So I would advise the next president, if ISIL's still in place in Syria and Iraq in 2017, go ahead and get the job done before they hit us here at home. They have too much money. They have too large a safe haven. They're able to recruit too much for us not to be affected if this goes on much longer. We know there have been 6,000 Western people go to Syria to be trained by ISIL. They can fake passports and come here. You can't wall the whole country up. So if you want to stop the refugee problem, you want to destroy ISIL, somebody needs to go in on the ground. So look in 2017 for an adjustment of strategy. What President Obama is doing will contain ISIL, but it will not destroy ISIL. The biggest threat to our national security, I believe, is the Iranian regime with a nuclear weapon. How many people believe the Iranians have been trying to build a nuclear weapon, not a power plant? If you said power plant, let Rusty drive you home. You shouldn't be on our roads, no matter how bad they are. So, the next president's going to have a really hard decision to make. If the Iranians don't change their behavior, the Israelis and the Arabs are going to act on their own. If you're the Prime Minister of Israel, you're not going to allow the Iranians to get a nuclear weapon because you think they might use it. How many of you believe they would use it if they had? Okay, now, this is good. The Prime Minister of Israel would raise his hand too. I talked to him 2 weeks ago. And he said, listen, there's only so much longer we're going to let this go before we have to act. Because when they write death to Israel on a missile, it's not advertising. They actually mean this. They're religious Nazis. I can't explain why people are this crazy. I cannot explain it, but I can tell you they're bound by their religion to do certain things. How many people in the arc of history have died because of religious motives of somebody? You've got to understand these people, Jack, and I've spent 37 trips to Iraq and Afghanistan last decade to learn what's working and what's not. Bush made plenty of mistakes, Obama's making them, I made them. Let's look forward, not backward. So the next president needs to rally the world to slow the Iranians down. They have de facto control over 4 Arab capitals. Any deal you do in Syria that allows Assad to stay in place is basically giving Damascus to the Iranians because Assad is a puppet of Iran. That's why Russia's intervention on Assad's behalf is so detrimental to us. Yemen is now a failed state, and the Houthis, who are supported by the Iranians, basically have a de facto control of Yemen. Libya is cracking as I speak. Iraq is basically heavily influenced by Iran because when we left, the Iranians filled in the gap. From the Sunni Arab perspective, from the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, this is their worst nightmare come true. To have a Shiite theocracy with the capability to dominate the region militarily and economically. The Saudi king told me to my face, you can have our army to go in to destroy ISIL with one condition. You have to also deal with Assad. No Arab army is going in on the ground in Syria to fight ISIL and leave Assad in power. Because the biggest threat they face is not just from ISIL, who would cut their heads off, but from Iran, their nemesis over time. They're not going to allow the Iranians to keep marching through the Mideast unchecked. In the next year, 2017, they're going to get about $100 billion of money from sanctions relief. I would argue that the next president needs to go back to the world community and say that we're going to cancel this deal until they change their behavior. This nuclear program has been contained, but it hasn't been stopped. In 15 years, under the deal itself, they have the ability to enrich and reprocess uranium without limitation. So even if they comply with the deal, in 15 years, they'll be a threshold nuclear nation. 15 years is like that in the Mideast. People are already hedging their bets. What do I fear the most? That the Saudis will panic and go buy a bomb from Pakistan. Now, I think all this is going to happen in the next 24 months, one way or the other. The next president of the United States, whoever he or she may be, needs to come to the Congress and work with us to reimpose sanctions and tell the Iranians, if you want a peaceful nuclear power program, you can have it. If you want a pathway to a nuclear weapon, you can forget it. And you're not going to get a penny of money until you stop turning the region upside down. The next president of the United States is going to have a mess on their hands in the Mideast. Then you got Russia and you got China. China's expanding their influence to our detriment in the Pacific. Have you heard of the TPA, trade promotion? The TPP treaty? Everybody's kind of down on the trade treaty. There's 15 countries outside of China that are affected by that treaty. The reason I want to sign that treaty is because those markets over in Asia, outside of China, we'll have access to, and they'll have access to our markets, so they will not be so beholden to China. Now that means some people may lose their jobs from displacement, and we'll help those areas of the economy that get hurt from trade. But the best thing America can do, I think, is to show up in Asia before it's too late. And when I say show up in Asia, I just don't mean trade agreements. I mean ships. To let the Chinese know you can't be too bold. These islands they're building over resource-rich waters claimed by others are tripwires for our military confrontation. North Korea, the guy is beyond crazy. They're going to have 50 nuclear weapons if somebody doesn't do something about it soon. China owns North Korea in a de facto fashion. The next president of the United States needs to have a relationship with China that is more respectful. See if you can get the Chinese on board to slow the North Koreans down. The next president of the United States is going to have a mess on his or her hands, foreign policy wise. Back here at home, how many think interest rates are going to go up in the next year? Servicing the debt gets harder. $19 trillion in debt. The next president of the United States is going to have a real challenge when it comes to servicing our debt if interest rates go up. Have you heard of Simpson Bowles? It's a bipartisan approach to our debt, where we will eliminate many of the deductions in the tax code that you and I enjoy, take that money to pay down debt. We adjust the age of retirement for Social Security and Medicare because we're all living so much longer. And people in our income levels who make $75,000, $100,000 a year in retirement are going to have to give up some of the benefits promised because we're running out of money. The next president of the United States needs to put in motion a solution to the retirement of the baby boomers. Who's born between 46 and 64? Who's born after 64? Good luck. We want our money. All of us are going to retire, which means you better start recruiting more members of the Rotary Club because like 2/3 of the people are out of here in 20 years. And I'll probably be one of them. Just think how many people raise your hands. We're all going to be on Social Security soon if we're not on it now. In 1950, where did Rusty go? That was stunning to me. The life expectancy in 1950 was 70. What is it today? You're a woman, say 4 and some change. What about the next 50 years? How many workers were there in 1950 for every retiree? 16. How many are there today? 3. How many will there be in 20 years? 2. Let me tell you why. I'm the problem. I'm not married, I don't have any kids. I'm screwing it up for everybody else. We have smaller families and we all live like strong. The only place you could be 100 was in the Senate. You know why it's the most deliberative body? Because most people are about 90 years old. Everybody's going to live like the United States Senate. The next president of the United States better do something about this before it's too late. What's my point? They're going to have a lot of challenges and they need a partner. So I'm going to end it with this. If I'm not willing to help the next president of the United States, then why? What's my job? Fight them when I think they're wrong, but help them for things that affect us all. Here's my promise to the Rotary Club. When it comes to destroying ISIL, I'll help the next president when I think they're right, because they'd kill everybody in this room if they could. When it comes to getting your kids out of debt, I'll help the next president, because if we don't, we're all becoming Greece. The really big stuff has to be bipartisan. Why do I reach across the aisle? Because Democrats exist in Washington. They have their needs. They're not going away. The next president of the United States is going to deal with a stagnant economy, and we need to fix the immigration problem. I don't know what solution they'll have, whether it be Trump's solution or Bernie Sanders' solution. I know this. Their ideas don't mean anything if you can't get bipartisan support in the Congress. Who's going to help the next president solve these problems? Members of Congress. So here's what I want to leave you with. I'll take some questions. The Rotary Club is organized around a set of principles that have stood the test of time. I retired from the military in 2015. The thing I liked most about being an Air Force officer was being part of something bigger than yourself. I spent 140 days on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan being part of a military unit where everybody was worried about each other. In my business, we don't have each other's backs. We stab each other in the back. This whole political process that's unfolding before our eyes is making me worried. The things being said can't be done. People are saying things that please the few that will hurt the many. So, service above self is pretty good for the Rotary Club. Should be good for your Congress too. So here's my promise. No matter who wins the election, I will do everything I can as your senator to help them, help the country that we all love. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
How do we get Simpson Bowles moving forward?
Without presidential leadership, Simpson Bowles will never go forward. Simpson Bowles was chartered by President Obama. They came up with a plan. The tax code has about $1.1 trillion in deductions. The idea is to eliminate most deductions, maybe put a cap on home interest, eliminate a lot of the popular deductions, and take a lion's share of that money to buy down tax rates so we can create jobs, but also pay down debt. Republicans have a challenge here. Most of us have signed a pledge that if we reduce it, if we eliminate a deduction or a tax credit, that money has to go to lower rates, not to the government itself, to make sure it's revenue neutral. Democrats say that they're not going to play the game of Simpson Bowles unless Republicans generate revenue to retire debt. So what Republicans will have to do is basically break the pledge that most of us have signed, and I'll break it. If you eliminate a deduction, let's say for ethanol production of $4 billion, I'd take that money to buy down lower tax rates and put some of it on the debt if Democrats would allow us to adjust the age of retirement. Did you hear Bernie Sanders talk about raising the cap on Social Security? You know what that means? We have a limit as to how much money is subject to Social Security taxation. It's like $100 and some thousand. He wants to allow the 12.4%, 6.2 for an individual, to apply to all income. That would be a large tax increase for an economy that's pretty weak. I don't mind raising the cap some, but you'll never save Social Security by just revenue. So here's what Democrats have to do. They have to reject what Bernie is saying. In Bernie's world, the 1% top wage earners solve every problem. In Bernie's world, there's only one thing you need to do: tax the rich. In Trump's world, I have no idea what he's talking about. So that's Trump. You can't do this based on revenue alone. If you took the entire wealth of the top 1% of wage earners, that is $30 trillion. If you took everything they had, including their dogs, the unfunded liability of Medicare, Social Security, and other entitlement programs is $70 trillion. Simpson Bowles says we will do some revenue, but we're also going to have to adjust the age of retirement because people live so much longer. If you can delay entry into Medicare and Social Security by a couple of years, that has a compounding effect that allows the baby boomers to retire with dignity and get them through the system without creating grease. I'm willing to do Simpson Bowles. When I was 22, I lost my dad when I was 21, my mom when I was 22. I received a Social Security survivor benefit check on behalf of my sister, who was 13. We moved in with an aunt and uncle who never made over $25,000 in life, and Texas plants are all now closed. If it weren't for that check, it would have been hard for us. Darlene received college loans and Pell Grants. I understand there's a role for government, but it's got to be sustainable. I'm 60, I'm not married, I don't have any kids. I've got a military retirement, a congressional retirement, and a 401k plan. If you ask me now to give up $400 a month of what I've been promised in Social Security benefits, I would say yes in a New York minute, because I don't need the money like I did when I was 22. And if enough of us will do that at the income level I'm in, and you ask younger people to delay retirement for a couple of years and give them 30 years to plan for it, we get through this mess. And the only way you make Simpson balls happen is presidential leadership and bipartisan support. I don't know what the next president will do. I know this: Trump won't do it, Bernie won't do it. I'm hoping that Cruz, Kasich, and Hillary will at least entertain the thought of doing it.
Senator, as a board member, I just want to thank you for coming back every year and speaking to our club. It really is one of the highlights of our year, and thank you. We'll hope you continue to do it in the future. My question relates to the public feeling that we just need to clean house in Washington. This whole concept of the Republican Democratic Party, the fact that they don't seem to want to get along and do what's best for the population. One of the things that seems to be growing among Trump supporters is this concept of that kind of helps step in the right direction of cleaning house in
Sure.
Washington. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, I could understand how you feel that way. Here's the question. Let's just use me as an example because I'm here. Rusty doesn't always agree with me. Well, I don't always agree with Rusty. But we're friends, and you've helped me enormously. I'm not here to be universally liked. I started with no opponent, right? Last time I had 6 people from mildly disturbed to completely insane. Next time it'll be 15. And that's okay with me, and if I make it, I hope I do. Here's the question: am I the problem or am I the solution? And what I'm trying to do, does it make sense to you? Tell me how you fix a broken immigration system without some Democratic value. I want to secure our border. I want to control who gets a job. I want to increase legal immigration because we're going to need workers. I don't believe you're going to deport 11 million people. Trump says you should, that I'm corrupt, that I'm bought. Trust me, the easiest thing for me to do in South Carolina is just say me too. You can put the Hispanic vote in this room. The bottom line is somebody up there, whether they're new or old, better find a way to solve problems. And tell me how you do this without both parties. Tell me how the Republican Party saves Medicare and Social Security from bankruptcy. How do you do it without a single Democratic vote?
You don't.
You don't. I tell you what, I'm not giving legal status to the 11 million, hoping the Democrats one day will help me secure the border. We're going to do this together. They're not going to give me everything I want, hoping one day I'll be fair to the 11 million. This is just life. So here's the question. Mr. Trump and Bernie Sanders have identified a dynamic in Washington that we're all bought and paid for. Well, I'll gladly let you look at my tax returns and who gives me money, and I'm going to call Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, because I didn't realize they made that much money. Here's what I learned in my time. There's no easy answers to this. Term limits, that's the way of getting new people in. That there's some merit to that. But if you kick everybody out after 12 years, the most powerful people left are staff members. Somebody's going to run the place. Here's my view of democracy. There's no substitute for people being involved and pushing us to do the right thing. Here's what I would ask you to do. If you think I'm doing the right thing, help me. Money in politics makes it hard to get to yes. If I could do one thing, it would be change Citizens United. Because when you reach across the aisle, you come back with a stump. There are so many people who make a living telling you to vote no. The Republican Party's primary is getting really hard right. The Democratic Party primary is jump the left ditch. How can this be? Most of us have one thing to fear, and that's the primary. So what would I do? I would change the way you pick the House. There are too many districts that are just all Republican and all Democrat. I would change the money in politics so all of us don't get their crap beat out of us. People you don't know who can write unlimited checks with an unknown agenda. those things will do more good than I think cleaning house, because the next person's gonna step in my shoes with the same problem. Couple more, I don't want to hold you.
How did Donald Trump get your cell phone number?
I asked him to do a fundraiser for me. You're the first person to ever ask me that question. Donald Trump did a fundraiser for me. It was half of what he promised. So that's how. And, you know, Donald Trump has tapped into cynicism that's real and legitimate. But is this the right answer to America's problem? We're going to ban all Muslims? Go to the Mideast and tell me how you win the war without fellow Muslims helping you. What did I tell the King of Jordan, who's one of the best friends we could ever hope to have? What did I tell all these people who've signed up in Iraq and Afghanistan to fight radical Islam because they don't want to turn their daughters over to ISIL or the Taliban, that you can't come to my country because of your religion? What did I tell the 3,500 members of the United States military who are Muslims? This stuff doesn't work. And as long as I'm your senator, we're going to talk out openly about what won't work. Last question. Could you hear this question?
No.
Okay, I'll repeat it for you. Go ahead.
And then we're sending them over there without the actual hours that they need in the air. How much would it cost if you go to replace the fleet so we can actually have our men up there in training and not increase from 6,000 hours of flight time to 8,000 hours of flight time on the plane?
Is your husband or a member of your family a pilot?
No.
That's amazing that you know all that. That's very... She asked me a question. Modernizing the air fleet. How much money would it take? Historically, we spent 4% of GDP on national security, about 4.5%. By 2021, under these defense cuts, do you know what level of GDP will be spent on national security? 2.3. Half of the historical average. Does that make any sense to you? How does it show up? The F-16 and the F-18 and the F-15 are 30-plus-year-old airframes. They're non-stealth. They're still very good fighters. The Russians are developing air defense capability they shared with the Iranians, the S-300, that really put all these pilots at risk. The F-35 has really been a huge problem in terms of cost. The capability of the F-35 will dominate the skies along with the F-22 for generations to come. Two things. This year we've changed the law so that cost-plus contracts will be replaced by fixed-price contracts. That if you're going to build the F-35 and there's a cost overrun, it comes out of your hide as a contractor, just not the government's. We need procurement reform to stop these abuses. Because of the defense cuts, we're delaying buying the F-35 in large enough numbers to lower the cost, which means that the F-15, the F-16, and the F-18 stay in the skies. If we had to go into Iran tomorrow, if they develop this Russian air defense system they've just bought from the Russians, the likelihood of losses is really high. Operation and maintenance, readiness, and training all go together. The Marine Corps is having to redeploy Harrier planes, the V-22, you know, that helicopter-looking plane, from the Mideast back home because there are not enough planes for the pilots to train on. So we're taking 6 planes that are dedicated to helping embassies that may be overrun by terrorists in Spain out of the fight to bring them back to the United States because we don't have enough aircraft to train the pilots. We're flying the wings off these airplanes. You're putting pilots in older airplanes. You're shortening their training time, and you're robbing Peter to pay Paul on maintenance. That, to me, is unacceptable. The next President of the United States needs to deal with that. How do you fix this? You take these defense cuts off, that are across the board, off the table, and replace them with entitlement reform that actually will get you out of debt. If you eliminated the entire Department of Defense, it is 20% of 1/3 of the budget. You could do away with the entire Department of Defense and not even move the debt needle. So it's going to take bipartisanship. It's going to take members of the House and the Senate acting like they're in a Rotary Club rather than worldwide wrestling. Thank you.
Senator, thank you for being here. He's got to catch a plane, so he's going to hit the road right now. Quick announcement, the Centennial Committee is going to meet right after this meeting, and with that, we're adjourned. Have a great week.